Welcome to Moral Side of the News, our weekly discussion of today's top stories from a moral, ethical, and religious point of view. I'm Sean Kalin with the WHAS Crusade for Children, and I'm joined today, as always, by a distinguished panel of local religious leaders. Father John Stoltz, St. Aloysius Catholic Church; Dr. Jamesetta Ferguson, St. Peter's United Church of Christ; Reverend Sally McLean, Christian Church Disciples of Christ; and Rabbi Stan Miles, Louisville Mountain School. We begin this week with Metro Council proposing legislation that would ban local and federal law enforcement from wearing masks.
The parking lot of this Louisville immigration office on South 3rd Street, where migrants have routine check-ins, sits mostly empty and quiet on this snowy day.
What do we want? No ICE! What do we want? No ICE!
A stark contrast from the protest in this area back in June, when members of the community, including Metro Council member J.P. Linninger, pushed back against immigration raids happening across the country, specifically ICE's use of full face masks to conceal their identity.
They're in plain clothes, into unmarked cars, and they're hiding their identity. That's wrong, it's scary, it's unconstitutional, and people want something to be done about it.
Months later, Linninger's legislation to effectively ban local, state, and federal law enforcement from covering their faces while working in public is one Metro Council vote away from going to the mayor's desk for him to sign into law.
If people are concealing their identity, that takes away a basic accountability.
But we're learning the vote to pass Linninger's proposal could be extremely close.
I'm not sure that I've got the votes. I don't have commitments to 14 right now.
14 is the magic number of council members needed, at the very least, to pass local laws in Louisville.
I expect it to fail. I expect it to be a close vote, and I expect it to fail.
Councilman Anthony Piagentini leads the council Republicans, who need just one Democrat to break party ranks and vote with them to doom this effort.
We will 100% be no against this. They're legislating something that nobody can even prove is happening here.
Piagentini calls Linninger's legislation anti-law enforcement. He says even though he prefers police not to have to wear masks, he argues in this threat environment, there are cases where it's needed for their safety.
You know, in isolated circumstances, I can understand why it happens.
Mayor Craig Greenberg tells me he hasn't had a chance yet to fully review Linninger's proposal, but he did say this when I asked for his thoughts broadly on law enforcement wearing full face coverings.
I mean, there are certain situations where I think face coverings are appropriate. If members of LMPD are out there directing traffic, certainly there are situations where there needs to be protection for individuals. But in general, I believe that law enforcement should not be wearing face covering.
So panel, I'll bring it out to us, and we were supposed to be joined today by Deacon Greg Gitcher with St. Patrick Catholic Church, and he has great experience in this, being in law enforcement and Secret Service. And I did want to point out something that he wanted to say, that there's a big difference between someone hiding their identity to abuse their authority and law enforcers that have to protect their identity to keep them and their families from being doxxed, harassed, even possibly harmed. People should notice that most of these officers have numbers on their helmets or on their back, or usually have their names on the front of their vest. He goes on to say, as a police chaplain during the BLM movement, I was around numerous officers that said their families and kids were being harassed in the school, in their neighborhood, and out in public. And the last thing I would want to do if I was working a 12 to 16-hour day is to be worried about someone messing with my family at home. So that's out there from his perspective. Get well, Greg. He's out sick today, but I'll turn it over to you all now.
I understand what Greg said, and I appreciate what he said because he clarified some things. But what I'm curious about is Mayor Greenberg's comment. Why would a person need to be masked if they were doing traffic control?
I was interpreting that as someone working outside in cold weather,
yeah, okay,
and then needing that. That's how I interpreted his statement.
Immediately.
But I'm not too sure if he meant something else by that.
I'm not. The important thing is, sadly, we have good actors in law enforcement and we have bad actors in law enforcement, sadly. Most of them, thank goodness, are good actors. And I had questions about this, and I was told that even though the ICE people are masked, they still have a number on their uniform or even their name on their uniforms so that if there is a question regarding their behavior, their identity can be clarified.
But I think what we need to do is drill down to why is this even an issue for us to have ICE and all of these other outfits, our other law enforcement, even being in that predicament where they are rounding up people and having to wear a mask and even having being afraid for their families and being doxxed if they do have masks on. And so, you know, for me, this reminds me of historical days of Ku Klux Klan wearing masks and slave catchers wearing hoods and all of that to protect their identity. And there's something wrong with that when people are doing things undercover in order and then claiming it for a legal reason. There is it's just not right. And people, even though they might have some type of identity, when people are afraid, what they're going to look at is that mask. They're not going to remember the name. They're not going to remember the number on the hood. All they're going to remember is that they were taken by someone who they cannot identify.
I just think that I agree with you, Jamesetta. And first of all, I do see. I see a point of an officer, a person who wants to protect their life or the life of their family and wants no injury or harm. Everyone, you're sympathetic to those kinds of feelings and emotions. With that aside, I believe that if you look more to the root, that the law enforcement, the enforcement being done right now is just, it's too aggressive in my opinion. And its aggression is causing a reaction in the public. There's some who are reacting very strongly where the officers feel as if their life is in danger. If it wasn't so aggressive, but if we handled immigration in a different way, I think we would come to good outcomes with what everyone wants for immigration, and that is for people to lawfully enter into our country, to build up our community. I think we would come to really a very different space, and we would not enter into this space of, as I said, in my opinion, a law enforcement that is too aggressive and a real misunderstanding of what is happening in immigration today.
There should be, in my mind, a rapport between law enforcement and the people. Mm-hmm. And when you are doing something that seems counter to building that relationship, mm-hmm. because wearing a mask doesn't give you a relationship, it hides the identity.
Right.
And it, you know, I'm trying to think back when we were children. The only masked ones were Zorro and the Lone Ranger, right? And they were the only ones I ever knew of that did any good. Everybody else's mask had some other kind of reason behind what they were doing. So, mm-hmm. you know, where is that rapport? Where are we building that trust? Because it doesn't seem like we're building trust right now.
Yeah.
I am so taken with Jamesetta's remark that why do we need ICE and so on and so forth? We have law enforcement mm-hmm. entities already right. on a state, local, and federal level. So what? You're right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, it's frightening.
Yeah, and it's set up to cause fear. You know, fear. When you are only, your only intention is to have a better life in many instances. And when all of this was put in place, it was with the premise that we're going after the worst of the worst. Mm-hmm. But that's not what we're seeing as far as them swooping up people and returning them to other countries, many times not their own countries. And so to have a community where your neighbors, your friends, your co-workers, your colleagues are afraid, you're afraid, because you don't know what the results might be, or if someone is going to approach you masked, and you don't know whether it is ICE or some type of a police entity, or if it's a robber. You don't know, and there are stories where people are actually pretending to be ICE, and they have nefarious motives in them pretending to do that. They are trying to gain entrance into a person's home or into their car or their employment. And so we need to really think about what the long-term results are of this. You know, children see people in masks and they're afraid. Our neighbors see people in masks. I saw a car the other day and agents getting out. And instantly there was a fear that raised up in me. You know, it's like, okay, you know, is somebody going to start shooting? What's going to happen here? And we should not live life with that type of fear.
Well, and you've also got the National Guard backing them up. So you've got a military presence backing them up, even adding to more fear, because you don't know what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, and that leaves trauma, particularly with children. I remember growing up as a child, walking through Parkland after the riots, and the National Guards were there, and they were there in their uniforms and their hats, and they had the rifles with the bayets on the rifles, and you had to walk to school past that, and you were wondering, you know, what's going to set them off? Where they're going to start shooting or harm somebody. And, you know, and I'm 70 years old today, and I remember that like it was yesterday. And so these type of situations are creating trauma, not only with us as adults, but more importantly with our children.
Historically, in the situation you're thinking back on, weren't the people in uniform there to protect you?
No. They were there to protect the property. They weren't there to protect the people, because the riots were in the West End.
Oh, because I was thinking back to the Little Rock Central High School. Oh, you're talking about
here in
1968.
Louisville. Yeah.
Oh, never mind. I apologize.
Yeah.
And one comment made before the show that's kind of sticking with me is the symbolic quality of the mask, of what it means symbolically. You know, that is that mask is a form of communication. It communicates a kind of an anonymous quality around law enforcement that I don't think needs to be there. You know, and also that, and Dim just mentioned about the military. That also communicates something symbolic of aggression, even though I have not heard I've really not heard stories about the National Guard being aggressive towards citizens, you know, many stories. Nevertheless, it's the image of aggression that's there. And the mask, I think, communicates that as well. Now, I don't see that as appropriate for law enforcement today.
Well, not to dismiss the quality of the conversation, but I think we buried the lead, and it's Jamesetta's birthday.
Yes.
Happy birthday, Jamesetta.
No.
Oh, I thought you said today, 70 years today. No?
No,
Oh.
I'm 70 years old.
Okay. I thought you meant today.
No, don't give me another birthday.
Strike that.
Not yet.
Well, happy birthday anyway. Well, thank you for the good conversation. Let's move on to topic 2. And new details coming out this week related to the September 2nd controversial airstrike on a suspected drug boat in the Caribbean.
This morning on Capitol Hill, Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley will be in the hot seat as furor over the administration's boat strikes in the Caribbean intensify.
I want to hear the truth. 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes, how many people in the water?
And this morning, new details about that September 2nd operation that has some accusing the administration of war crimes. The suspected drug boat is seen here being hit by a U.S. airstrike. Shortly afterward, sources say 2 survivors were seen climbing back onto the boat. It's against the laws of war to strike shipwrecked survivors. But the sources say they were potentially in communication with others in the area and attempting to salvage some of the drugs that had been in the boat's cargo. Because other vessels were in the area, sources say, they were determined to be, quote, still in the fight and considered a valid target. ABC's Selena Wang asked President Trump if he will release video of the second strike.
I don't know what they have, but whatever they have, we'd certainly release, no problem.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who oversees the operations, says he personally didn't see any survivors or the second strike, but calls the decision to strike twice Admiral Bradley's call.
He sunk the boat, and eliminated the threat. And it was the right call. We have his back.
So, panel, it's also being reported that there were JAG lawyers, military lawyers, in the room when the attack happened, too. Watching, making sure everything was legal. So, your thoughts on this?
I don't know anything about war. I don't know anything about what the requirements are. What I do know that, once again, we have been talking about fear, the fear of retaliation. And what is to prevent another country or another terrorist or whatever to do the same thing to other American vessels? I was recently traveling over in the Bahamas, and in years past, you would have maybe taken a private boat, so that you could go fishing or whatever the case may be. And I didn't do that this time because I thought to myself, what would happen? I'm out here on this boat in this water, going to Trinidad or wherever, and somebody decides that this is the boat that we're going to strike. We're going to retaliate for what America has done. And so I don't think that we don't think long term about what the effects are on some of these decisions that we're making. We're just making it right now so that, we're big man in the U.S. We the strong people, but we don't think about what the long-term results are going to be from all of this.
Behavior is just so impulsive, and because it's so impulsive, it's terribly frightening. Mm-hmm. And when an act is done, there is responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm thinking of that one thing is that it seems to me to be really complicated. I'm guessing that the boat was in international waters, and so then I wonder about international protocol around an act like that. I have a desire that the rules against drug trafficking in international waters ought to be generous to a nation where they suspect that the drugs would go. But I don't know. I would wonder why it has to be a kill. I would wonder, even though I know it's in international waters, I wonder why there couldn't be an arrest instead. And with that arrest, someone would gain intelligence. You could establish guilt or not, and there would be, I think, advantages that we would have over just a direct kill, which seems to me that it's not asking enough questions. Again, against my own religion and others, the dignity of human life. there are those questions too that you have. And the fact that it's such a violent act without that. So I look at that and say that I would hope that there would be alternatives instead of this way of doing it. At the same time, if there's drugs coming or being trafficked, I would want those to be stopped in some way. But there's got to be better ways.
I don't think there's anything healthy about a 24-hour news cycle. I do not think it helps our mental health at all because we have 50 million different opinions on the same topic and we hear it over and over again. And, you know, it's hard to know and decipher actually what happened and to whom it happened and for what reason it happened. And, you know, is there a justification for the military? Is there a justification for the American citizens? You know, it is complicated and it is confusing. And I think a lot of times we just take snippets and we do not know enough about how our military functions, how our government functions. And so we just come up with these opinions. And, you know, I hope there's a better way to do this. I hope there is. And the justification is, well, we're making America safe because, you know, these are drug traffickers coming into the country. Okay.
But wasn't there a way before that drug traffickers, wasn't there?
The Coast Guard.
The Coast Guard, aren't they the ones that are supposed to take care of this? Weren't they doing an adequate job before now? But all of a sudden, they are incompetent, and the only way that we can resolve this is through blowing the boats up. I mean, something doesn't add up in this picture here.
Somebody said like a game, like a video game,
Yeah.
you know, watching it. So I want to know why Hegseth left and then is saying he has the back of the admiral. There's a chain of command. So if he didn't even see what happened and he walked out of the room, I just think that's confusing. And there are questions to be asked and answered.
Did you have anything further, Stan?
You do. Where is it?
I'm just trying to frame it. Why? We're pretty powerful. First of all, can the United States Coast Guard function legally in Venezuelan waters? Question. I don't know. Secondly, why, other than making a big splash of fire and death, couldn't those boats could have been easily apprehended. Their crews could have been easily apprehended. Why go the death route? It just doesn't. It would probably be more effective to seize the boats, seize the crew, see if there's any contraband, if necessary, question the crew. But why the death and fire and explosion route?
When one of you said something like video games, I pray that we are not going there. And that is that this very real life event, this action of violence is somehow being done for people's attention and for people to see it and for political advantage. It's just, that is not where our culture needs to go. You know, we do need seriously to apprehend narcotic drugs moving around in the world and with international cooperation, and to do that well. So that certainly needs to be done, but not a video that is so violent that in almost sense looks unreal and is done maybe, as I said, for political advantage. We don't want to go there morally.
And you see it over and over and over. It's not one time. And if you're listening, you hear it over and over. So what is the purpose?
It's certainly not entertainment.
No, but it can come across as entertainment to some people, to the wrong people. And I don't want to say wrong people, but to the wrong to the criminal mind, that looks like fun.
Yeah. But, you know, you were saying it was in international waters, so you would think that there would be some collaboration between us and some of the other countries, right, in doing this. And we're doing all of this solo. In fact, they have mentioned that some of the countries have stopped sharing information because
they don't trust us.
They don't trust us.
Which is so tragic.
Yeah.
They're definitely sending a message in your discussion about a game to the drug dealers too, that we're not going to take this. We have about 3 minutes left, so let's move on to the penny. Now, we love the penny around the crusade, so much so that we collect on average about 3.7 million pennies, $37,000 in pennies for the Crusade for Children each year. So the U.S. ended production of the penny last couple weeks ago, abandoning the 1 cent coins that have been embedded in culture for 230 years. It was first introduced in 1793. You could buy a biscuit with a penny. You could buy a piece of candy with a penny. And now they've been cast aside, sitting in jars. Cost 4 cents to make a penny. So 2 minutes left. What are your thoughts on
You
the
learn to
penny?
count with pennies. You know, you're counting. I mean, I remember learning to count with pennies. You start with nickels. Where are you going? You're starting with 5? Okay.
It's weird. Okay.
So what happens to all of the pennies that we have? Do we just...
We turn them into the crusade.
You just corner the penny market and
I know,
turn them into the crusade.
Jamesetta, I know what happens to those pennies. They magically turn into nickels. Do you know why I know? Because I was in Kroger this week, and I used the automatic checkout, and my bill came to something like $12.91. So I didn't have a penny. So I put in $12.95, and for some reason I got a nickel back in change, and so I could have done that. You know, doing that all day, you can have an income.
I don't know, Stan.
It was just bizarre.
Well, it does cost 4 cents to make, so maybe it is worth a nickel. And what are we going to throw on Benjamin Franklin's grave now in Philadelphia? Everybody throws pennies on it.
Or into the fountains.
Or into the fountains.
Hey, yeah, into the fountains.
Right. We will still take your pennies at the crusade.
You mean they don't throw $100 bills in?
They throw 1 penny, 1 cent every penny.
But his face is on the $100 bill.
True. Something to ponder over this weekend. Thanks for joining us this week for Moral Side of the News. Father John Stoltz, St. Aloysius Catholic Church. Dr. Jamesetta Ferguson, St. Peter's United Church of Christ. Reverend Sally McLean, Christian Church Disciples of Christ. And Rabbi Stan Miles, the Louisville Mountain School. Thanks for joining us this week. Join us again next week for an all-new Moral Side of the News, and have a great week.